You probably have a complicated relationship with sleep. Maybe you lie awake for an hour before it comes. Maybe you wake at 3 in the morning for no reason you can name and stare at the ceiling until your alarm goes off. Maybe you sleep 8 hours and wake up tired. Maybe you have taken medication for it, or downloaded an app for it, or bought a weighted blanket, or started tracking your sleep stages on a device strapped to your wrist. Maybe you have simply accepted that bad sleep is part of being a modern adult, that this is just how it is now, that your grandparents probably had the same problem, that humans have always struggled with sleep. They did not. For most of human history, sleep was not a problem. It was not a discipline, not a routine to optimize, not a source of anxiety. It was simply something your body did in a way that matched what your biology was actually built for. And the gap between what ancient sleep looked like and what yours looks like is one of the most revealing windows into what the modern world has done to the human body. Let's start with the finding that restructures everything else. Roger Ekirch is a historian at Virginia Tech. He spent 16 years combing through historical documents, diaries, court records, medical texts, literature from ancient Greece through the early 20th century in over a dozen languages. What he was looking for, and what he found in more than 2,000 separate references, was a consistent description of something almost no modern person does, something that was for most of human history considered completely normal. 2 sleeps. The first sleep, a period of waking. The second sleep. Not insomnia, not a sleep disorder. A deliberate, recognized, socially understood pattern of sleeping for several hours. After dark, waking naturally in the middle of the night for a period of 1 to 3 hours, and then sleeping again until dawn. Ekirch found references to this pattern in Homer, in Chaucer, in medical guides from the 15th century that told readers the hour between first and second sleep was the best time for sex because the body was at rest and digestion was complete. In court documents where witnesses described events that happened during their waking period. In prayer books with specific liturgies written for the hours between first and second sleep. This was not an occasional occurrence. It was the human norm. For thousands of years of recorded history, across dozens of cultures and languages, sleeping in 2 separate blocks with a waking period in between was simply what sleep was. And then it disappeared. Within a few generations after the widespread adoption of gaslighting in the 19th century, the pattern vanished from the documentary record almost entirely. The industrial world needed people awake at fixed hours, productive by a consistent morning time, sleeping in a single consolidated block that fit the schedule of factories and offices. So the waking period, which had for millennia been used for prayer, reflection, sex, quiet conversation, reading by candlelight, or simply lying in the dark in a state of calm awareness, was reclassified. It became insomnia. It became a medical problem. It became something to fix. Sleep researcher Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment in 1992 that confirmed what Ekirch's historical research had found. He recruited healthy volunteers with no sleep disorders and placed them in controlled conditions of 14 hours of darkness per day for a month, approximating the conditions of human sleep before artificial light. Within a few weeks, without any instruction or suggestion, every participant spontaneously shifted into the same pattern. A first sleep of approximately 4 hours. A waking period of 1 to 3 hours of quiet, calm awareness. A second sleep until morning. The biology was still there. intact after more than a century of suppression. The body, given the conditions it had evolved for, simply returned to what it had always done. What were ancient humans doing during that waking period? The historical record is specific. They prayed. They talked quietly with bed partners or other members of the household. They had sex. This period between first and second sleep was specifically recommended for conception in medieval medical literature because of the body's relaxed state. They reflected on their dreams, which in many cultures were considered communications from the divine, most clearly accessible in this liminal waking state. Some people got up and did light domestic tasks by candlelight. Others simply lay still in a state that Ekirch describes drawing from the historical sources as a kind of wakeful rest, not anxious, not trying to get back to sleep, simply present in the dark. That experience, lying awake at 3 in the morning without distress, is almost entirely unavailable to the modern person. If you wake at 3, you check your phone. You calculate how many hours of sleep you have left if you fall asleep right now. You worry about the meeting tomorrow. You lie there in a state of low-grade alarm that makes the return to sleep harder and harder. What your ancient ancestors experienced as a natural interlude, you experience as a malfunction. Now here is what most people miss. It is not just the structure of sleep that changed. It is the biology. Jerome Siegel at UCLA has spent years studying sleep in hunter-gatherer populations who still live without artificial light, the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. His team used actigraphy devices, wrist-worn sensors that record movement, to track sleep with precision and gathered data across all seasons. The results upended almost everything sleep researchers had assumed. First, the total sleep time. The Hadza San and Tsimane averaged between 5.7 and 7.1 hours of sleep per night. Not 8, not 9. Closer to 6.5. By modern sleep medicine standards, they were chronically undersleeping, and yet rates of insomnia in these populations were extraordinarily low. Rates of the daytime fatigue, cognitive impairment, and mood disruption that characterize modern sleep deprivation were minimal. They were sleeping less than the recommended amount and functioning better than populations that sleep more. Siegel concluded that the number 8 hours may be a cultural artifact more than a biological requirement. What mattered was not duration alone, but the alignment of sleep with biological signals. His hunter-gatherer participants fell asleep consistently about 3 hours after sunset and woke near or just after sunrise. They were sleeping in precise alignment with the natural light-dark cycle. Their bodies were producing melatonin on the schedule evolution had built, with no artificial light interrupting the signal. Your body is still trying to run that schedule. It cannot. Artificial light, and particularly the short wavelength blue light, emitted by the screens you use in the hours before bed, suppresses melatonin production directly. Your body is waiting for darkness as the signal to begin the sleep preparation cascade, and you are flooding your visual system with a light spectrum that tells it is still midday. Every hour you spend on a screen in the evening is an hour your melatonin production is blunted, your core body temperature fails to drop on schedule, and your sleep onset is delayed. You are physiologically fighting your own biology to stay awake, and then surprised that sleep does not come easily when you finally want it. Stay with me, because this goes deeper than light. Ancient humans slept outdoors or in structures that were barely separated from the outdoors with no climate control. That matters enormously. Core body temperature naturally drops 1 to 2 degrees in the hours before sleep and continues to fall during the night. This temperature drop is one of the primary biological triggers for sleep onset and for the deep, slow-wave sleep stages where physical repair and memory consolidation happen. Your body loses heat most efficiently through the skin when the surrounding air is cool. When you sleep in a room at 70 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, your body's ability to execute this temperature cascade is compromised. The sleep you get is shallower. The restorative stages are shorter. Ancient humans were cold at night. Not dangerously cold, they had fire, and they had each other, but cool enough that the body's sleep machinery ran the way it was built to run. Siegel's research confirmed that hunter-gatherer populations consistently slept during the period when ambient temperature was dropping and woke as it began to rise. They were sleeping inside a natural temperature gradient that reinforced every biological signal their bodies were already sending. Now add the physical component. Hunter-gatherers walk a lot. Studies of Hadza adults have found average daily step counts between 10,000 and 19,000, 2 to 3 times the average for adults in industrialized countries. They carry weight, they dig, they climb, they spend hours in low-level physical activity that is varied, sustained, and embedded in the texture of daily life, rather than performed in a dedicated time block. That level of physical expenditure builds a genuine physical tiredness, what researchers call sleep pressure, that accumulates across the day and reaches a point by the time darkness falls where sleep is not a discipline but a need, an irresistible need. You sit, mostly. Your physical expenditure in a typical day, even if you exercise for 30 minutes, is a fraction of what your ancestors performed without thinking about it. The sleep pressure that should build across a day of genuine physical activity simply does not reach the same level. And so when you lie down, you are asking a body that is not physiologically ready for sleep to go to sleep on a schedule set by your alarm rather than your biology. Here is the detail that almost never gets mentioned. Ancient humans slept together, not just couples groups. Hunter-gatherer bands slept in shared spaces with the warmth and sound and physical proximity of other people, a constant feature of the sleeping environment. Sleep research consistently finds that co-sleeping, when done in conditions that do not compromise safety, is associated with longer total sleep time, more sleep efficiency, and in some studies, more time in the slow wave and REM stages that produce the deepest restoration. The sound of another person breathing is for the human nervous system a safety signal. It tells the ancient threat detection systems in your brain that the group is intact, that there is nothing to be vigilant about, that you can release into deep sleep without maintaining a half-alert state against predators or isolation. The single occupancy bedroom standard across much of the modern world is an arrangement the human nervous system has never fully accepted. You are sleeping alone in a way your ancestors almost never did, and your body is running a low-level monitoring state against the silence and stillness that it reads at an ancient level as the absence of the group. And they had no alarm clocks. This sounds trivial. It is not. The research on what alarm clocks do to the body is consistent and uncomfortable. When your alarm cuts into a sleep cycle before its natural completion, it elevates cortisol sharply and immediately. The stress hormone spikes in the first minutes of waking. It disrupts the natural end of the sleep architecture, where the body spends the final hours of sleep in lighter stages, preparing itself to surface into waking. Ancient humans woke when their bodies were finished sleeping, when light temperature or the natural stirrings of the camp signaled morning. That transition was gradual. The cortisol wake-up signal rose slowly, as it is supposed to, over the course of an hour or more, producing an alert and functional state, without the jagged, unfinished feeling that millions of people wake into every morning. The word for that feeling has a name now. Sleep inertia. The grogginess of waking abruptly mid-cycle before the body was ready. Your ancestors didn't have a word for it because they almost never experienced it. What does all of this add up to? Ancient sleep was shorter than modern guidelines recommend, but it was aligned. Aligned with darkness, aligned with temperature, aligned with the physical tiredness of a genuinely active body, aligned with the safety signals of proximity and community. It was structured when it occurred naturally around 2 periods rather than 1, with a waking interval that was not anxious, but calm, not medicalized, but expected. It ended when the body decided it was over, not when a device decided it was time. Modern sleep is longer by many people's standards, better resourced, covered by mattress technology and blackout curtains and apps that track sleep stages and white noise machines. And it is, by almost every population-level measure, worse. Rates of insomnia have climbed steadily across the industrialized world for decades. Rates of sleep-related disorders, sleep medication use, daytime fatigue, and the chronic diseases associated with poor sleep, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, cognitive decline, have all risen alongside the development of the technologies designed to improve sleep. You are not bad at sleeping. Your biology is not broken. You are sleeping in an environment your sleep system was never built for. On a schedule, your circadian rhythm did not set in a light environment that tells your melatonin production. It is always day in a room that is too warm alone, woken by a device that cuts through your sleep cycle, like a blade in a body that did not move enough today to be genuinely tired. Every one of those things was different for your ancestors. Every single one. You probably have a complicated relationship with sleep. That is not a personality trait. It is not a failure of discipline or routine or the right supplements. It is the predictable, measurable outcome of what happens when a biological system shaped over 300,000 years of evolution meets an environment built in the last 200, and the environment wins. Your body still knows how to sleep. It has been doing it since long before there was anything to keep it awake. The question is what you are willing to give it back.